If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't get me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over. And I've done it over and over and over. So it should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me.
I don't want that guy. I don't want this kind of person in our entitled person on our team.
What if the NFL's next elite quarterback doesn't act anything like one? He walks into interviews wearing a diamond chain, flexes watches on the sidelines, talks like he's already a Hall of Famer, and backs it all up with an arm as precise as a laser. But instead of praise, he's called arrogant, entitled, even too flashy to lead a team. His name? Shedeur Sanders, the son of a legend, the face of a revolution, and the most polarizing QB college football has seen in years. Some coaches want nothing to do with him just based on personality alone. One even said, "I don't want this guy in my locker room." But others, including legendary coach Urban Meyer, see something entirely different. A leader, a playmaker, and someone who's already proven he can turn around a program built on failure. Is Shedeur cocky? Maybe. But is he talented enough to earn that confidence? That's the real debate. Because beneath all the noise, there's one undeniable truth.
I loved watching them. We covered at Big Noon. We covered them. We were there for Deion's, I think, first 3 games, and he turned around a program that was a train wreck, and you don't do that without Shedeur Sanders. And to me, I don't know. I still, that doesn't sit right with me.
Shedeur Sanders doesn't just play the quarterback position. He challenges what it means to be one. And his journey might just change the NFL forever. The moment Shedeur Sanders stepped up to the mic at the NFL Combine, it stopped being about X's and O's. In a room full of young prospects, hoping to impress with rehearsed humility, Shedeur said something completely different. If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't get me. I've done it over and over and over. And just like that, the internet exploded. To his fans, it was a bold statement of intent, the kind you'd expect from someone who transformed Jackson State, then helped put Colorado back on the college football map overnight. But to his critics, it was a red flag. Too confident, too loud, too much me, in a league that values quiet leadership and team-first mantras.
The locker room, I'm the guy to do that. I can turn it around. I mean, he's very high on himself.
If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't get me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over. And I've done it over and over and over. So it should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me.
I don't want that guy. I don't want this kind of person in our entitled person on our team.
Scouts and executives were split. One anonymous coach said flat out, "I don't want this kind of person in our locker room." Media personalities accused him of acting entitled, of treating success like a guaranteed outcome instead of something he still had to earn. All over a few sentences and a flashy chain. But here's the part they skip. Shedeur wasn't bragging about what he wanted to do. He was reminding them of what he already had done. He didn't just show up and talk big. He led. He produced. He won. At Jackson State, he absolutely lit up opposing defenses. Then under his father, Coach Shedeur Sanders, Shedeur stepped into the pressure cooker that was Colorado football. A broken program, one of the worst in college football at the time, and in just one season, flipped it into a national conversation. He wasn't running from the spotlight. He was the spotlight. And yet, NFL insiders continue to act like image is more important than ability.
What are you seeing with Shedeur Sanders? And do you think Shedeur Sanders has what it takes to be a starting NFL quarterback?
I loved watching them. We covered at Big Noon. We covered them. We were there for Deion's, I think, first 3 games, and he turned around a program that was a train wreck. And you don't do that without Shedeur Sanders. I got to go behind the scenes and watch his coach or his father and coach. And, a lot of times we all get uncomfortable with maybe the flash and the posse and the watches, et cetera, et cetera. But I know what I saw. I saw a player that can get out of trouble, lead a team, has really all the skill set to be successful. He took just a god-awful program and they turned it around. And so I think there's a lot of substance there.
Maybe that's why Shedeur's combine interviews became such a lightning rod. It wasn't just about football. It was about who's allowed to speak with power, who's allowed to wear ice, who's allowed to break the old school quarterback mold and still be taken seriously. But in the middle of all that criticism, someone else was watching. Someone who's coached at the highest levels, won national titles, and knows exactly what leadership actually looks like. Because while some coaches couldn't look past the jewelry, shovel-ready sound bites, and watch-waving confidence, Urban Meyer saw something very different. While the media was tearing down Shedeur Sanders for being too confident, Urban Meyer, one of the most respected minds in college football history, was watching from a very different lens. He wasn't interested in the jewelry. He wasn't swayed by the noise. And he definitely wasn't playing into the tired narratives about what a quarterback should act like.
Damn an interview. Okay. You're going to tell me an interview, because typically what they say, Paul and Joy, they don't tell you about the interview, they tell you about the board. He wasn't successful on getting on the board. So they couldn't mess with his football IQ.
Meyer didn't just evaluate Shedeur from highlight reels, he saw it up close. He was there for Colorado's opening stretch when the world couldn't stop talking about Coach Prime. A stadium transformed overnight, and the kid under center who seemed completely unfazed by the chaos. You don't take a train wreck of a program and turn it around like that without a real quarterback, Meyer said. That quote didn't make headlines the way the negative soundbites did. Probably because it went against the mold. But Urban Meyer didn't stop there. He praised Shedeur's leadership, his poise, and the kind of control he had over a game. He pointed out traits that even experienced NFL quarterbacks struggle to master: escaping pressure, reading coverages, staying calm when nothing's working. And most importantly, he said this: he has everything it takes to succeed at the next level.
So I said a couple of weeks before the draft, and I feel like I'm the first person to say it, don't pick him. His lights are not meant for Broadway. Okay. And they didn't pick him. I don't like my quarterbacks flashy. I like them under the radar. I like them workmanlike. I like them soft-spoken. And I don't prefer quarterbacks that like the attention.
Coming from any coach, that's strong. But coming from a man who developed quarterbacks like Alex Smith, Dwayne Haskins, and coached Tim Tebow through his prime, that means something. Interestingly, Meyer compared Shedeur's impact, not his play style, to Tebow. He said that the aura, the branding, the fan base that Shedeur brings with him, it transcends football, just like it did with Tim. But here's where the complications come in. No team wants a backup quarterback who draws more media attention than the starter. Even if he doesn't ask for it, like Tebow didn't, the spotlight follows. And as Urban admitted, coaches want team first, no distractions. Which means Shedeur's biggest issue might have nothing to do with football. It's not about ability. It's about how much noise he brings with him and whether teams are prepared to handle all that comes standard when you draft Shedeur Sanders. But that also raises a question that the league can't quite answer.
They couldn't do that. So they had to switch it to the interview and say he was arrogant because he came in with a chain on. Oh, okay. He came in with a chain on. Big deal. He didn't slouch in his seat. He didn't walk out of the meeting room early. He didn't come late. Those are the things that make you worry. But having a conversation with you and telling you that he's going to change your franchise like he did Jackson State and like he did at Colorado, I want that on my team. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not going to punish him and dock him because of that. I'm like, yeah.
If a quarterback can lead, produce, inspire his teammates, and electrify a fan base, why does it matter what watch he's wearing? Urban Meyer watched Shedeur closely, not just on the field, but behind the scenes. He saw the mind of a quarterback, the footwork, the arm, the composure. He saw a competitor, not a distraction. But not everyone could see what Urban saw. It wasn't his arm strength. It wasn't his accuracy. It wasn't even his film. What really triggered the NFL world was confidence. When Shedeur Sanders said he could change a franchise's culture, it rubbed traditionalists the wrong way. Not because it wasn't true. He'd already done it at Jackson State and Colorado. But because quarterbacks, especially young ones, are supposed to be humble, soft-spoken, and quiet leaders. Shedeur? He walked in like he'd already earned it. That confidence? Some scouts labeled it as entitlement.
Coach, when we here in Cleveland are talking about quarterbacks, seems to always be on the mind. We have somebody in town that I drew a comparison to Tim Tebow about, and that was because of the fan base they brought with them that transcended football, and that's Shedeur Sanders. And not comparing the way they play, but what they come with. They have a brand. Tim Tebow had a brand. Obviously, you coached Tim Tebow.
And yet, no one could point to a real red flag. He wasn't late to meetings. He wasn't disrespectful. He studied film, performed on the field, and backed up everything he said. But because he wore chains, showed personality, and didn't shrink in interviews, some teams instantly doubted him. It's not new. This league has long punished players for stepping outside the old script. But Shedeur isn't reading from that playbook. He's writing his own. Here's the part the critics conveniently ignore. Shedeur Sanders can play at an elite level. At Colorado, he didn't just survive against Power 5 defenses. He picked them apart. In his first 3 games, he threw for over 1,200 yards, completed over 70% of his passes, and dropped 10 touchdowns with 0 hesitation. And that wasn't a fluke. He did it with poor pass protection, behind one of the most overwhelmed offensive lines in the country. Shedeur was sacked more than any other Power 5 QB in 2023, and still kept delivering.
The issue that I remember Tim had, and a GM told me this one time, is that if you're a backup quarterback, and whether you bring it on yourself or it's just because Tim tried not to bring it on himself, it just happened. As a backup quarterback, they don't want all the media attention on that one player. All coaches want, team, no distraction. So I'm not there in Cleveland. But if you're asking the question, can he do it? I don't think there's any doubt he can do it. It all depends on what's around him. But if you're talking about a skill set, great leadership, quality person that I really enjoyed watching, I'm a Shedeur Sanders fan.
Outside the numbers, the tape tells the truth. His anticipation is next level. He can throw guys open, not just hit the wide open ones. That's the separator between college QBs and NFL-ready ones. The arm talent, it's all there. The decision-making, sharper than most rookies. The accuracy, not just good, absurd. Some scouts went as far as to say he's one of the most precise throwers in the class. So when critics point to jewelry, brand deals, or sideline watches, they're missing the real flex. Production under pressure, poise under fire, stats that don't lie. After months of viral highlights, combined drama, and non-stop media attention, draft night came, and Shedeur Sanders' name was never called. Not because teams couldn't use a quarterback, not because he didn't have the stats, the poise, the leadership, or the upside. So why? Some insiders said teams were turned off by the flash, the chains, the social media hype, the brand. Others whispered about personality concerns, calling him a little too polished, too self-assured, as if somehow being confident and marketable made him less qualified. It wasn't about football anymore. It was narrative, perception, fit. And the league sent a message loud and clear. We're still not ready for quarterbacks who don't fit the old mold. But here's where that message turns into a mistake. Because for all the talk about character and culture fits, teams passed on a QB who checked every box on the field. In Sanders, they saw spotlight. In reality, they missed a surgeon with the football and a locker room leader with receipts. Now the question is, did they dodge a distraction or overlook a dynasty? Meanwhile, in Cleveland, a storm is brewing. With shaky quarterback performances, growing unrest in the locker room, and a fan base desperate for consistency, Cleveland is suddenly a wild card in the Shedeur Sanders conversation. And the whispers? They're getting louder. During a recent discussion on Cleveland sports radio, Shedeur's name came up, not as a headline chaser, but as a potential solution. One host even said he brings what this city needs: swagger, leadership, and introduction. Then came Urban Meyer's comment, carefully worded, but heavy with meaning. Can he do it? I don't think there's any doubt. Whether through the draft or a shocking trade scenario, Cleveland is now watching. Fans are asking, if we're going to rebuild, why not go bold? Preseason Game 3 is becoming a quiet deadline. If things spiral and the starter stumbles, the Browns might need a new face fast. And Shedeur, he's watching too, listening, waiting. Because all it takes is one team with the vision to see past the flash and into the fire. And if that team is Cleveland, the league better be ready. For decades, the NFL has had an unspoken rule. A quarterback should be quiet, modest, clean-cut, not just in how he plays, but in how he speaks, dresses, and carries himself. But Shedeur Sanders doesn't fit that blueprint. He doesn't shrink to meet expectations. He doesn't apologize for confidence. He plays the game with precision and leads with presence. And for some franchises, that's still threatening. Make no mistake, the league has no problem with flashy wide receivers, loud cornerbacks, or end zone celebration artists. But when a quarterback shines too bright, suddenly it's a distraction. And yet, winning fixes everything. Shedeur has already shown he can walk into broken programs and reshape the locker room. He's already proven he can take hits, silence critics, and deliver when the pressure peaks. The NFL says it wants leaders, game changers, young stars. Well, here he is, unapologetic, unfiltered, and undeniably effective. So now the real question isn't whether Shedeur Sanders can succeed in the league. It's this: is the NFL ready for a quarterback who doesn't just play the game, but dares to change the way it's played? Because love him or hate him, Shedeur's not coming to blend in. He's coming to take over.